morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today, I have the pleasure of having Cindy and Monica, who are the co-founders of Rapt GiftWrap. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Justine.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so pleased to have you. I absolutely love what you're doing. And I can't wait to share everything that I've learned and that we've discussed so far with our community, with those watching and those listening. But before we dig in, can you just share with everyone what Rapt GiftWrap is?
So Rapt, in a nutshell, is fabric gift wrap that replaces single-use wrapping paper. So it can be used again and again because it's fabric and there's nothing to throw away.
Awesome. I love this. So, and I know when we were talking before, you guys came up with this idea, Monica, when you were in, was it the Container Store or shopping for wrapping paper? Can you just go on a little bit about that for us so we know where the inception of this idea came up?
Yes, thank you. So it was 8 years ago. I was at the Container Store buying a large amount of wrapping paper because I have 3 children and I'm one of 7 in my family, so large family, and buying lots of wrapping paper and the bows and the tags, everything. And I got to the cashier with a cartload of paper, and it just hit me all of a sudden. And I said to her, even though this is a bit rude, I said, "Oh my God, this is going to just be bags and bags of garbage on Christmas Day." I just sort of froze, and I said, "Do you sell reusable gift wrap?" And she goes, "No, but that's a really good idea." And I bought the wrapping paper anyway. But then I got in my car and I thought, this is a good idea. I'm going to do it. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And I called my sister, who.
And this is not your sister, just for those watching.
This is my friend Cindy. Even though Cindy would have told me if I was crazy, I called her first because I thought, and I was actually shopping for her children at the time, but for Christmas. And I just pitched this idea. What do you think? And she thought it was a great idea. And then the second person I called was Cindy, because we'd been friends since our children were in elementary school or kindergarten, actually.
Preschool.
Yeah. And she had a company at the time called Seam, a children's clothing company. I knew she knew all about fabric. She made the most beautiful dresses and all sorts of really interesting clothing. And I thought, well, this is the person to ask. And we had a great relationship. And I thought I'd just see what she thinks of the idea. And she loved the idea. And at the time was pivoting from Seam. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Seam now, but she had everything in Massachusetts. She had the cutters, the sewers.
I did. Yeah. I was doing everything.
Fabric sources, most importantly.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think of this idea? And she said, it's a great idea. And
while
the whole time I'm shopping for things on the phone, sort of filling another cart with Christmas gifts and, handing, money over to cashiers while I'm, still talking on the phone, totally obnoxious, I think. But what's funny about the story is that I was so distracted and so excited about the idea. I bought all the wrong things. I bought the wrong sizes. I bought women's things for my nephew. I had to return everything the next week.
That's my favorite part.
But what was funny is I thought, because Cindy had Seam, I thought, we have to come up with a name that kind of works with Seam. It has to be a 4-letter word that can I thought it would be sort of an offshoot of Seam. And so by the time we got home, we came up with the name Rapt, R-A-P-T.
She came up with the name Rapt, and I did not. But I always say that. It was her idea, and I think it's fabulous. I love it.
It's a good name.
It just does everything perfectly.
Yes. So. And we like
it wraps it all together for you.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
exactly. Great. So then, you can pick up if you want.
So then we started practicing. We'd buy fabrics, we'd go to the fabric store. We wanted a lot of things. We wanted it to do a lot of things. It needed to have opacity, so you couldn't see what the gift was underneath. And we wanted reversibility, because when you are wrapping a gift, you see both sides, whereas on old school wrapping paper, you don't. Yeah. So you need to have reversibility. You needed a weight that would actually tie a knot and not be too difficult to tie.
Not corduroy.
Right? Yeah, corduroy doesn't work. So we were solving for all those different pieces when we started to look. And I reached out I had used a lot of men's shirting in my kids line because it was just perfect, washable and everything. So I would reach out to them. They would sometimes have 5 yards of something left or 2 yards of something left, and we could pick that up. So we did that. Another was a larger company that we were able to get some basic fabrics Then we went down to a local company and we started to pick up like some remnant stuff, or I used remnant stuff that was left from my kids' line. And once we started making it, we realized it just the square of fabric was the solution. The old school art of furoshiki, which is a Japanese art of wrapping.
So was furoshiki something that you guys were really familiar with before you started this? That was something that you learned.
No, we didn't. In fact, we were like, how are we going to close this? We attached snap tape that you see in hospital uniforms, Velcro, long ribbons, but it looked so messy. The snaps didn't line up exactly for the present size.
It also wasn't as versatile.
No,
like if you had a medium and you wanted to do a smaller book or a smaller box, if you put snaps on it or Velcro on it, it might not match.
Right, that's the problem. And so we wanted to look really pretty, like old school wrapping paper present does.
Yes.
And so we finally were like, oh, it's kind of interesting too, because it's a square. But what's interesting is in the same way that your mind just needs to shift, the fabric just needs to shift from a square to a diamond. And once it becomes a diamond, you have the ends to tie, as you saw, Justine, when you were wrapping the coffee table book. You don't need anything. There's no scissors, no tape.
And the other thing as we've been doing it is, not only is it sustainable, and that's fabulous, and we're going down that route as much as we can, but also it's easier.
It is much easier.
Like I sent my birthday's right before Christmas, and 2 of my kids went upstairs, and I said, you guys, there's wrapping paper and there's gift wrap. You can use and there's wrapped. You can use whichever one you want. And they said, oh, Mom, we won't use the wrapped because that's for you to use for Christmas. And they came back down, and everything, they had used all the fabric, the wrapped.
What role does sustainability play from the get-go? I mean, I know it was inspired because there's all this waste, but then it seems to come through the whole company in so many different ways. Was that intentional?
I mean, not really. What's funny is it started with the idea of obviously not throwing away all that paper, being buying all the wrapping paper, and then as we sort of chose our boxes, we thought, okay, we're going to do ones that can be recycled, that are craft paper boxes or cardboard boxes. And then we started thinking about the amount of paper that we're using, and we wanted to.
I would say it became more and more intentional.
More and more, and then keeping it in the United States, because that was intentional.
But not only in the business, as you and I have talked about, it's extended to our life.
To our lives.
I'm now driving an electric car, and we're now both composting, which we weren't before. Like all of a sudden, the little tiny bits that we're doing with this is starting to eke into our lives.
And for example, I'm taking my jug of laundry detergent and refilling it at a store in Lexington. There's a lot of zero waste stores around, and just little things. And all of a sudden I started buying handkerchiefs instead of using tissues. Like it became kind of just a mindset all of a sudden.
But part of that is also like we've done a pop-up at that store. So that store, we reached out to that store. So you're starting to think and then see what's possible.
Connections. Yeah.
And if you could, what I would love to do is, just because I know that as you were doing your research and as you were going about doing this, you learned about furoshiki and what that means for you, as well as how you've incorporated it into the business and what role it plays. So can you maybe define furoshiki for us?
Yeah, well, I just went over, I was looking at this.
Centuries ago in Japan. It started with baths, with the public baths.
It had a different name too.
Yes, it was
Tsutsumi.
Or furoshiki. They seem interchangeable. But people would bring their, I guess you'd call them toiletries now, and their clothing to the baths, wrapped in bundles of fabric. And then centuries ago. And then that kind of morphed into becoming a commercial use, where you'd go and buy your things from the market and wrap them in your fabric. And then it became a gift as that tradition evolved. And so that's kind of the history of furoshiki.
Well, they started to use it as gift in stores, in commerce. Yes. And so then it shifted into that because nobody was using it to go to the public bathhouse anymore.
Right.
And so but it has been around for centuries. But like we were saying, it tends to be in one size. They don't tend to sell various sizes.
That's the difference, basically, between.
Well, that's the difference, and they don't tend to sell it in sets.
Okay.
Like we find it a lot online. We can find even Hallmark's doing it now. But you're going to buy a sheet of one pattern or print, whereas we're trying to provide you with a set so that if you put it out for a birthday or whatever, you go somewhere, they all kind of go together.
Right. makes sense, and it looks nice underneath the tree for the holidays, or
Exactly.
That's what
bring
we're
like a
thinking.
group of gifts. They may not be twins; they could be cousins, but they all work together.
Yes,
So,
right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
now that you've sort of got your head around the Rapt market, right, and what you want to sell to the community and the impact you want to have for sustainable life and living, and you're really making an impact there because, as you said, how many football fields of waste do we have from just Christmas?
I think I said 6,200. It's either 5,200 or 6,200. It's a
Football
lot.
fields, right? That's a lot of waste.
Everybody knows 100 yards is a football field, and so it's kind of a measure you can sort of visualize.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy
Well,
number.
And the
The
other
landfill.
thing is, I wonder the carbon footprint, right? Because it's single use. You have to ship
Yeah.
this around the world. This is not single
Yep.
use, so you're keeping it. And so, yes, there's a little carbon footprint, of course, whenever you ship it somewhere, but you're
Mhm.
continuing to use it.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's
the
not
idea.
single use anymore. So I appreciate that aspect of it. So now that you've captured this wrapped market and you're making beautiful wrappings for people to be able to give their gifts for whether it's, a birthday or a holiday, are there any other things that we're going to see from you guys in the near future?
We do listen to customers and what they're interested in and what they feel like they need. So sometimes we do add things, and to earlier, I think I mentioned that we were thinking about how to create something that you store
Yes.
the wrapped in, because the storage is different than your regular wrapping paper container storage that you've bought in the past. It doesn't work the same way. So like thinking about like maybe we offer some kind of embroidered gift wrap tags, right? So that you, for your family, could buy little ones that are stamped or embroidered or whatever that you just keep. So in my case, I do use our the ones that we've created, and I write it in ink and I keep those, but maybe there's another level to think about. So
here's a thought. I'm just curious. Are you familiar with the NEAT method?
No.
Okay. Anyway, they go in and they sell all these different things for your pantry and your home. And then on the front of it, they have, you can get different kinds of labels that you stick on. They're magnetic. You can move them around. And they give you an erasable pen, or you buy an erasable pen to put so you can go like this and like that. But something like that could be clever, obviously in a different format. Because if you use something and you use a pen that you can then erase, you're keeping it in the house. So after the gift, you're not ruining it. You're just taking that off, and it's good for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's definitely that's one of the things that we float around, and how to do that. And then always looking for different ways to find fabric that builds part of this market in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back a little bit because I know that, Monica, you were originally a teacher, so this is your first endeavor as an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
I think yes, it is.
And then I know you have a children's company, and now this is a second endeavor. But I don't know if you had any other entrepreneurial endeavors before, and you're some serial entrepreneur that exits all the time.
No, this is my second.
Okay.
Seam. I started Seam. I started making clothes for my daughter when she turned about 1. I just didn't like the fit of what was out there, and people would ask me for it. And then eventually I started making it for stores, and then eventually I morphed into production and finding production, and then trade shows. I was in Barney's for a minute and a half. I mean, it was kind of,
they had a great kids section, by the way.
At my price point, it was this clothing that could be washed and dried and go to the playground and the party. Didn't need ironing, but people wanted, if they spent a little more, they wanted the party dress, and that's kind of not where. So it was just one of those tricky things. So at some point I was ready to morph. And
so now you guys come together, and you raised your family, and you were a teacher, and you were an entrepreneur. So how did you, when you come together, decide how you're going to divide these tasks up that you had to do? You had different experiences.
Yeah, I studied art in college, and I was a graphic designer for years, worked for a museum. And so my background is all very design based. So
She designed our logo. Cindy designed our logo. And
all the graphics.
Everything.
So
all the graphics.
The website, the
photography.
The photography, the Instagram. Anyway, so that was kind of easy. actually,
Yeah.
because
The
it was
division of
just-
labor was kind of
yes.
easy. And then the inventory was at my house at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of an easy division of labor in
Yes.
terms of, even though I don't have a business background, I started just reading every book I could find, starting with the lean startup because we still are very lean, actually.
Yes, we are.
And so it's been a learning, but it's been really interesting. I feel like it's like every day you wake up just trying to solve a problem. I mean, this business started by solving a problem. And it's just,
it's
in every
a great
business,
mental exercise.
It really is.
It really is.
It's been interesting to talk to people buy it. It's been interesting to see people early adopt things.
Well, and see people that find us.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool that you guys found us.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as you came together and you kind of, went into your specialities or your niches, and it was very straightforward. And I'm sure there were other things that came up that maybe you guys were not familiar with. Are there any tips on how you navigated that you might share with other founders today?
I mean, we did a lot of kind of learning trial by error in a weird way.
Well,
like the marketing piece, the marketing.
Well, we're still trying to. The marketing piece.
Do
is still,
you go to the print magazines, which are we're transitioning in the last 10 years, transitioning to digital. The actual digital marketing, a lot of it we didn't know anything about and just had to learn. And I joined a cohort at Babson and did an entrepreneurial.
I did another one somewhere.
Cindy did one too. I mean, it was really fun. We met tons of
Facebook.
entrepreneurs.
I mean, we've tried all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's just the question of where's the special sauce in terms of spending your money. And at the moment, we had hired someone that helped with SEO and they helped with Google ads. And so we're now running our own based on some of the metrics that they had created over the last 2 years, I would say.
So that's a big deal. That's a big deal for entrepreneurs, right? When they reach that threshold that they're now trying to do marketing and paid advertising. So what was that moment for you when you realized, okay, we need to take this leap and we need to be able to move forward on this? And how did you decide that?
Well, we started with someone that actually was reaching out to a lot of print stuff. And we ended up on it's a local TV show called Chronicle. And there was a 15-minute piece on us and we got a lot of bump from that. And we almost ended up on Drew Barrymore apparently, but that didn't pan out. But stuff like that, we realized, okay, at some point it got us into a lot of magazines and that was great, but then we wanted to explore something else. So then we went to the digital media. Part of it is just exploring and attempting different ways. And the digital media person worked beautifully for a year, but then the second year wasn't as strong. So then the question is, do you want to spend the same amount and and so we decided that we would use it ourselves.
And basically. I think one of the biggest challenges, I know for me personally in the beginning, was putting yourself out there and talking to people in public and putting your videos out there. It's
like we did a competition
a uncomfortable
in
at the beginning,
and
then doing your pitch in front of an audience. It's scary, and even though I was a teacher, I was used to being in front of a classroom of kids. It was challenging to stand out there and pitch your idea, to total strangers. But as you did it, you realized you can do it. You can do these things that aren't that difficult and you get better at it the longer you do it. And it's just, to me, that was just really interesting.
One of the other things I have to say that also came into play was having done Seam for 10 years, the kids line, I had a lot of answers. So some of the answers were, don't overproduce.
Yes.
Our inventory is such that you don't need to recreate it every second like I did with Seam, because you have to have new prints.
There's not seasons.
And you have to have a fall and a spring. And if you try and bring your spring back, people will know. Can't do that. Whereas in Rapt, it's different. It's more,
evergreen.
Forever. Yeah. And then the other one was, I would do these beautiful prints with Seam and everyone would love them and it would draw them in, but that's not what sold. What sold were, as I like to say, the little black dress.
Right.
The neutrals.
So reds, recognizing that you can do the prints to get somebody's attention and excitement, but what's going to sell are the solids and the neutrals. So that it was a great. I had learned that previously, and it became a very
Yeah.
important jumping off point.
So Cindy, when you decided to collaborate with Monica on Rapt, did
Yes.
you let Seam go?
I did.
You did. Okay. And when you guys first came together to do this, and this was what, 8 years ago? Did you say?
Yes.
8 years ago. Did you imagine you'd be where you are today?
I don't know. I don't know that I had some clear expectation going in. I knew it was gonna. There was a funny moment in the very beginning where Monica's like, "We can't have the website live. You can't put it live because we're gonna sell out and no one will come
I'm an
back."
optimist.
And I looked at her and I was like, "No one's gonna know it's live. Like it takes a while. Like
Yeah.
I've been to
I
this
thought we were
rodeo
going to sell out immediately.
and yeah, and I had definitely had the experience on that particular point. So so I just was kind of like, let's, I knew that slowly going forward, and luckily my husband also said that. He was like, look, you just keep putting one step ahead of the next and keep going and trying things.
Wow. Well, I'm super excited for you guys. I'm super excited to, showcase you as part of the Essential Ingredients Gifting Guide for Sustainable Living next week, November 21st, at our holiday pop-up that Ashley is hosting in Ross. So for those of you in the Bay Area, do turn up. It's from 3 or 4 to 7. We'll be sharing the information on Instagram. So if you don't follow us or you're not familiar with us, follow us at essential.ingredients. Or you can look at Justine Reichman, and we'll make sure to share all the information for the pop-up as well as Rapt. And we're going to even show some videos on how you, once you get your Rapt product, can sustainably and thoughtfully and beautifully wrap all your holiday presents and birthday presents coming up. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And I want to thank both you guys for joining me and sharing your journey with me, as well as the product and the little tutorial.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for reaching out.
It's been great.
It's been fun.
Before we let everyone go, if anybody that's not in the Bay Area wanted to get their Rapt, where might they get their Rapt?
RaptGiftWrap.com.
RAPT giftwrap.com.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can also find us on Instagram at Rapt GiftWrap.
Perfect. Thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you to our community for tuning in. And if you're listening to the podcast but want to see the video cast, you can find us at Next Gen Purpose on YouTube, where you can check out the video as well as all the different ways that you can wrap your presents. But we'll make sure to post them also on Instagram. Thank you.